LensVid's coverage of IBC 2024 is brought to you by Small Rig, Big Dreams, and Hollyland, made to inspire.
Hello, we're at IBC 2024 and we're at the Sony booth and we're talking to Yann Salmon. Hello, Yann.
Hello, Ido. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again for I stopped counting, I think last time. So we have quite a few questions for you. Basically, there weren't any huge announcement. There was something fairly recently with the camcorders. Maybe the models are...
NX800 and Z200.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So, but we're not going to really talk about them. We have a bunch of questions about other lines of cameras and products. So let's start with the Sony A1 firmware. And we discussed this the last time on IBC 2023. And the firmware is finally out, the big firmware, and a correction. I think it took some time. We'll talk about this, but there is one feature. There are quite a few features which were really, I think, useful for Sony A1 users. But there is one feature that I'm personally still missing, and that is the focus stacking, which exists on the A7R V.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you is, obviously, you probably can't say if this is coming or not, but the question is it something that the Sony A1 can do? Because the A7R V, for example, has the AI chip.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if this specific feature is related to AI chip, and if not, maybe it is possible to add it. So
it's probably not, to be frankly honest with you. The thing that you have to think about is the product positioning, as usual. So 7R5 was very much designed into landscape photographer, also macro photographer, of course also portraitist and so on. And the focus bracketing function with the image stacking function that you do post-production is very aligned with this usage group. So don't get me wrong, I don't say there is no Alpha 1 user that do macro or do landscape, of course not. But when we released the firmware, the key focus was made on the user group that is more on the news side, sports segment at the release. So we appreciate the feedback. We know it's a function that has usability by Alpha 1 users as well. So we'll keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. Let's hope that something will come. Talking about firmware and talking about the A7R V, there is a feature that the camera didn't really get any big firmware updates as far as I can tell. I'm not sure if it needs one, but there is one feature that a different Sony camera has that doesn't exist on the A7R V and exists on the ZVE1 or ZVE1, and that's auto framing. Now, I think that there is no reason why this won't be able to come to the A7R V, but this is probably the same issue as you just mentioned.
Yeah, you again, I think technically there is no fundamental reason in my knowledge that shouldn't be able to support. After, as you said, the A7R V is more a traditional photographer camera with a very high resolution, with all the target group I mentioned. So it's true that the focus of this new auto framing was done on the ZV1 in the targeting of filmmaker, video maker, and especially one man, one woman band creators that sometimes need to have this auto framing function. So of course you would have 7R5 filming and potentially needing this function, but it's quite niche compared to the vast majority of users in reality.
Yeah.
So honestly speaking, I'm not sure that the priority will be put on that, on the 7R5 for that particular reason.
Okay, fair enough. I want to ask you about firmware in general. Now, there have been, and I mentioned this before in the beginning of the talk, that there have been some issues with Sony releasing a firmware and then re-releasing it after some corrections were found, some issues, and they were resolved, and the firmware was re-released like 2.01 versions.
Yes.
My question, obviously this will happen. You release a firmware to the wild, and people discover that there are some issues with something. The question is, maybe Sony should think about releasing, let's say, a beta version to a larger group. I know that you have internal, checking or internal versions released to your small group of testers. But maybe you should have like a larger group of professional testers, hundreds, thousands of people who would use this and give you feedback back to prevent these from happening again in the future with future cameras. What do you think about this?
So, first of all, yes, you're right. We have had issues. I think on the Alpha 1, you mentioned at the beginning of delaying or taking out the firmware update, and we have recently done it as well on the A7R V and the FX3 and FX30 that was released early this week. And yesterday we took them out for a similar reason. So I will be very transparent on that.
Yeah.
Are we testing? Yes, of course. We're doing thousands of tests.
It's difficult to test internally for so many different possibilities.
The thing, is exactly as you say. The difficulty of a firmware update is the combination of settings. So any type of combination may create a problem at the update or once it's updated during the usage. And testing everything is impossible and it's very, very difficult. So the position we have is, of course, we want to improve. We will do our best, but we are monitoring. So as soon as we see that a bug repeats several times, we decide to take it out immediately to check and release eventually a 0.01 version as mentioned. But we take that on board. We have the feedback and we're trying to improve it. But again, the complexity of Sony menu is extremely vast, give a lot of possibilities to the customer, but it also creates sometimes challenges to make sure that all the combination can work, I would say.
Yeah, but in terms of like getting more testing by outside users, let's say you can create, maybe it can be a closed group, but a large closed group with a few thousand users of different Sony cameras.
I cannot tell you, honestly, I don't have the information from the engineers on how many people testing it and how the testing are done. So I don't want to comment on that side. After you have a confidentiality issue as well, if you start to open it, you need to make sure that, and controlling the confidentiality on a very large group of persons sometimes can be challenging as well.
Yeah.
So understood anyway, we take this very seriously and we will try to improve and take your suggestion.
No, I was thinking just the confidentiality. I understand why it exists, but we're not talking new products, we're talking new firmware. So it might be a little bit less hard if you want to call it this way, but I don't know. That was just a suggestion. Currently, Sony cameras are incapable of recording to basically USB-C devices. So if you have an SSD and you want to record to it, because other companies, some companies do allow this. Is this something which is limited by the hardware or maybe the software of Sony cameras? And is this something that you might consider? Because I think that this has some advantages. Maybe initially it was problematic, but there were reasons why not to include it. But nowadays, where you have a lot of CF Express Type A manufacturers, it's not just Sony like in the beginning, maybe it's an option to consider because it will let users input or output basically the content into a much larger SSD, and there are very, very fast SSDs, so it's not a speed problem as far as I can tell. What do you think about this?
So fundamentally, technically, you're right. I don't think there is any hard stop to do it. After our policy or our direction was to have the dual card slot with the dual recording with a safe copy. And so far, for a videographer, filmmaker, they're really happy with this solution. Of course, I think the suggestion is good. We know about this request and it might come in the future. I don't know yet, but as I said, the direction we took was the dual slot with the dual recording for our position for now.
Okay. Sony, as far as I know, Sony doesn't have any single dummy battery option for their camera, like a Sony unit. You can buy all sorts of third-party ones, and I think that you have something called the Sony NPA, it's a complicated name, MQZ1K, I don't know. It's an old unit. I'll show it in the below, so people who know it will know what I'm talking about. It's basically like a quad unit with a dummy battery connected to it. So it's an interesting product, but it's quite expensive.
And big.
Now, why am I asking this? Dummy batteries is quite, I would say, dangerous, because if you're using one which is not good, you can destroy your camera. So I would feel much more confident to use a dummy battery from Sony, maybe even something that was approved by Sony and not manufactured by Sony. Let's say a company will come to Sony and say, we get your approval for this product, and you know that it will work and it will not destroy your camera. Because I can say that this actually happened to us with the camera. So, so it's dangerous. So is this something that you might consider either approving or manufacturing your own dummy battery as an option?
Yeah, so of course, we've heard about this kind of request, and especially in the B2B segment, for example, that's a functionality that is also regarded. As of now, as usual, I can't comment on future product or accessory development. So we have that in mind.
Okay.
On the second question, can we approve a third-party manufacturer? Very difficult, because for the simple reason we cannot control the production line of third-party companies. And as you said, if something happened, we are liable if we approve a third party. So it's most likely impossible to do that.
But maybe you will do it.
Maybe. I have no...
Yeah, you can comment.
I can't
okay, but at least you're aware of the request.
Yeah,
okay, okay. This is a question about one of your oldest lenses, but it has a bearing on maybe future lenses. Your 90mm macro lens.
Yep.
It's a very, very unique lens in its design, because this is the only Sony lens, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the only Sony lens that has hard stops for like the existing line as far as I know. So it has a push-pull mechanism, so it's manual focus and autofocus. Yep. And when it's in manual focus, you can turn it and it basically stops at both sides.
You're right.
So it's basically fantastic for people who want to use it for both stills, but also for video if they want to use a follow focus mechanism. Why did you stop making this design, and would you consider making an entire line of like lenses that will fit follow focus gear and autofocus? I know that Sigma is thinking about this. They have a prototype that we show in the lens.
Yeah, so first let's come back to the reason of the 90 macro. Why is it designed like that? As it says, a macro lens. A macro photographer are looking to focus, manual focus precision, but also repeatability. So the hard stop is very important for them. And that's why the 90 macro has that. So after that, we don't want, and all the rest of the lineup, as you know, we are very much aiming for the fastest autofocus, smooth AF in video, focus speed in photography. And we don't want to have any impact, negative impact, by putting such a technology or clutch and changing the, I would say, the technology side of the lens, of the other lenses, just for the video aspect of the manual focus in video. So that's the main reason, is that the impact that you may have by changing, by using the clutch mechanism, may have also impact on the classical focusing speed.
I understand, but do you see, okay, obviously you can't comment on future products, but I would ask you this. Do you see a place in the market, in the lens market, for a series of lenses that will be hybrid video stills?
Yeah, I will answer you yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
For this, I think you will agree that the hard stops is important.
It makes it completely sense.
Okay.
Sense.
So that was.
But as of now, in the current lineup,
of course,
how we design it.
Okay. Let's talk about, again, some sort of, we're in a video trade show or cinema trade show, so I have some video-related questions. So let's talk about linear focus, and this is something that exists, I know, on some Panasonic cameras, but with fly-by-wire lenses, but it doesn't exist on, correct me if I'm wrong, on any Sony cameras. So there is no way of doing, maybe on some lenses you have, but it's not like it's not a feature of the camera with all lenses. So it's very lens camera particular, I think.
We do have the linear manual focus response mode that is on quite a lot of lenses. I don't have the
so you can repeat the
where it's a basically linear response that you can engage on the camera on compatible lenses. And currently we have quite good feedback from filmmakers on that. So,
so I'm trying to figure out, so how would, if you want to buy a camera, it's not a lens, not a camera, but it's camera specific, it's lens specific?
It's in the camera as a setting, but it's specific compatibility with specific lens.
Do you remember?
I would need to check, to be honest, which are the lens lineup.
Maybe you should do a little bit better of a marketing.
Maybe.
So people would know this, because this is an important feature for a lot of filmmakers. So that's interesting. I have a question about Lidar autofocus. So you know this technology?
I think it's a laser technology.
Exactly. So DJI has this, and PD Movie also, a Chinese brand, has this. We tested it. And how do you see this technology compared to regular autofocus? And do you think that maybe Sony should consider this as a niche thing that can help in very specific situations? For example, in very low light situations where the regular autofocus struggles, this can actually shoot in like complete darkness because it's active technology. It shoots a laser and gets the laser back even in complete darkness. So in very low light situations, and maybe other situations where regular autofocus doesn't work, but it would be nice if this will work directly with the camera. So this is why I'm asking Sony about that and not talking to other companies.
So, as you know very well, we develop our autofocus technology based on the AI and the AI chip. The principle of our focus system is object recognition, and on human is the body recognition, limb recognition, position in the frame, and different types of objects. That is made to make focusing anticipation and serve high-speed shooting and high-speed autofocus that will serve in the end high-speed shooting, and also of course in video smooth autofocusing. So that's really the center of our focusing system. Integrating laser focusing would need another additional device, would need to basically develop specific algorithm inside the camera as a dual autofocus system that would have an impact on price, an impact on size, and a lot of impact that the consumer in general wouldn't like. So in our approach of autofocus today, I think the laser technology is not fitted in the current lineup. I think it doesn't mean that, as you mentioned in your question at the beginning, and you kind of answered it, is that on very specific application, it might be of interest, but is it more an industrial, for example, application, or business-to-business application? I don't know, but on the wider consumer range, I think for now, the focusing strategy, or the strategy we have on the focusing technology approach is slightly different.
No, I didn't mention something which I think might, it might increase the size of the audience for this, is obviously cine lenses, because with cine lenses, if you have this, it's easier to use this in combination with a full focus motor, and then it works. But you don't have a full focus motor at the moment, so you do have, I think, something for the PTZ that we saw. So you sort of do have the technology.
Only have one.
So I know, maybe. So that,
I think the technology is interesting. I cannot say if the engineers are planning to integrate it or not, but as I mentioned, I think in the core lineup for today that we have today, I think it's difficult to integrate. But as you say, maybe in cinema there might be.
I think that what you said is correct. That maybe integrated into the camera doesn't make sense, but as an accessory that does communicate with the camera, let's say through USB-C or the hot shoe or something like that, maybe.
As you know, we also integrate our autofocus system that comes from Alpha originally on the FX series and up to the Burano now. So the thing is that our strategy for now is when autofocus is needed, the current lineup of lenses in combination with our technology is very efficient. Having said that, when you start to go up in the cinematography level, where the lens, I would say the look you get from the lens becomes very important.
People
We're entering in another world of very big lenses where autofocus is still a big debate among the DOP and the director, and they don't use autofocus yet. So sometimes they do with autofocus. So it's a good thing, but as we have our AF technology with our own E-mount system that is working now up to the Burano, should we or not do different focusing system is a good question. But as of now, I think we stick rather to the E-mount system rather than changing completely
the autofocus
system
methodology. Yeah. Last year you mentioned to me basically something about a multi-camera app. It was off camera, but it was really interesting. And now you do have it. You released it, I think, 2 months ago, something like that. So you do have a multi-camera app where you can use one, basically an app on your iPad. We'll talk about this in a second. To control up to, I think, 4 cameras, right? So you can control 4 Sony.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to highlight Monitor and Control app. That is a free app. We have amazing feedback on it.
We use it as well.
Yeah, it's extremely popular. And you know, false color and histograms, zebra, and we also added now the shutter angle for specific models. So it's extremely popular. We have very, very good feedbacks on it. And we added now the multicam control on it. And this one is available for, I think, 10 or 11 cameras, something like that. So you have the Burano FX6, FX3, FX30, then Alpha 9 Mark III, Alpha 1, 7R V, and
7R5? I don't think that...
it's in the new firmware update.
Oh, really?
Exactly.
Okay, so this answers one of my questions.
Exactly, so it's progressing. So I just wanted to highlight that, and for your listener and your followers, if you haven't tried it and your camera is part of the compatible camera list, please do use it, because it's an excellent monitoring app. So concerning the multicam, so your question, yes, we added it. It's limited to 4. As everything, there needs to be a limit. So the choice is made between stability and efficiency, cost, etc. So we thought that the 4 is a good number for a start. We do not plan to extend it to more camera control, more camera on the multi-control for now. But generally speaking, the feedback, as I said, is very good. And also, you may have heard or not, but we are planning to extend the monitor and control app compatibility to a much wanted camera. This is the Alpha 7 Mark IV. So from October end, normally 7 Mark IV and ZVE1 should also be compatible.
So that is very, very good news. I do have one other question regarding this. Why is it just on an iPad? Is there a chance for us Android users to be able to enjoy this?
So as of now, the priority has been put on the Android because of the size of the screen.
Because the software itself does, like the camera and control app does work on Android. We use it.
Yeah.
But not this aspect of
the multicam. You mean? Yeah. Because the reality is the user group and the size. The multicam is to be used on a larger screen, and I would say the how I would say market share or
the Android tablet is not that big.
The area of the producer and the category of content creators much bigger on iOS.
But let me ask you this: even if this is not going to come soon to Android, what about PC?
I haven't said it's not coming.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know, honestly speaking. I'm not sure the planning, but as of now, the reason why it was decided like that as of now, that's what I just explained.
Yeah.
Will it come? Let's see. I wouldn't like to comment.
I hope it will.
I hope as well, because if I say no and 2 months later it comes, I would like and the opposite. So let's see. But anyway, thanks for the feedback as usual. As you know, all these feedbacks, we always listen to those.
No, it's nice to see that the A7R V is now on, and the A7 IV will be.
Exactly.
a follow-up just to this, it makes a lot of sense. We use 3 cameras, so we use an A1, an A7R V, and an A7R IV. So in theory, you can use all of them for shooting our podcasts. And for this setup, it would be nice if we can't use it on an Android, maybe we can use it on a PC because you have a PC software. And if you're shooting like for like multi-camera setup, like on a regular basis on the same location, you can use a PC to control it. So this makes a lot of sense. I don't know, at least to me.
Yeah, it could be. Again, I'm not in in the development.
But maybe this is the feedback that you can give
of the engineer. So
yeah.
So yeah.
But this is the feedback you can.
And there might be other solutions through SDK. I'm not so sure. Software development kit, but you need a bit of programming there.
Okay.
So it's a more complex. But
let's hope that it will continue to evolve because it's a very important feature, I think, for a lot of users. This is a question that we didn't come up with this question. I saw especially Tony Northrop, which talked about this a lot of times, but a few other people as well. And it has to do with camera preventing theft of cameras and camera gear. Now, on your phone, for example, you have thumb recognition or at least a key pattern or a code or something. You don't have this on cameras, on any camera, not just Sony, just to be fair. Maybe Sony can be the first to actually have some level of theft prevention on camera gear, because this is it's a big issue between photographers, that gear, which is very, very expensive. I don't know if you can prevent lens theft because, you can't really lock it, but on cameras, maybe you can. So what do you think about this?
So you're right. I've seen this conversation on different type of media and proposal. I think the conversation is fair, interesting. Now, if you also look to those discussion or articles or videos, there is also a lot of discussion on how to do it. And you can feel that there is no good solution in the end. And if you start to put locking system on a camera, and photographer, videographer, what they're looking for is their camera have to start straight away. Action happening, you need to be ready. And that's, for example, one of the big aspects of the Burano in wildlife documentary compared to other brands is that the camera starts immediately. So I think of course you will answer me, but you could put it, on and off or in the menu, but you can be sure that all photographer and videographer will put it off in the end. So, so I think that the lock screen thing option is not a very good one. Will it really deter thief to steal a camera because it has a function? I would not think that the thief would know about that.
No, I would think that if this would be very prevalent and photographers use it, then eventually the theft market, secondhand sort of, will be blocked because people won't be able to buy it after that.
But still you have the first problem.
Yeah, you're right.
And then after that you have cars that stop automatically with the GPS signal and so on. Do customer want to add another 500 or whatever it costs to add such a theft feature? And size, and eventually you need also the camera to be connected all the time, battery consumption, heating problems, etc. So I think it's a good question. There might be easier solution existing. So why not? But I think it's not an easy one.
No, I agree. It's not the actual implementation is not easy, but you are aware of this.
Yeah. We are aware, but it needs to be, I think we say in English, deterrent, so a thief, and also practical. So I think that's the difficulty of such a system.
Okay, fair enough. Final technical question. This is something that happens to us, and we did a small survey between people that we know, other professional photographers. It happened to some of them. I wouldn't say all of them. Let's say a quarter of the people that answered said that it happened to them at least once. And that is when you put your camera back in the bag when the bag is usually pretty full. Sometimes the on-off switch turns on, and what happens is that if you don't notice that, the camera just starts working in a closed bag, and it gets very, very hot. The battery drains. I don't know if it hurts the camera, but it definitely kills the battery. So I don't know, I've been trying to think if there is a good way that we can solve this. I so far didn't find any. Maybe Sony has an idea on how to solve this. I don't know, either a second lock to the on-off, a way in menu to, I don't know, have a travel switch, so you will have to push 2 buttons to turn the camera on. I don't know, something.
So yes. So of course, this feedback already came to us after you said, you asked if there is a risk for my camera. No, because that's why you have heating control system in the camera that stop automatically the camera to overheat.
Good to know.
Then after that, before talking about solution, I'd like to explain a little bit how we decide the tightness, I would say, of this button is very important, because if you make it too tight, then it's difficult to turn on, and customer would most likely complain that it's blocking and it's not smooth enough. Of course, if it's too loose, then it's not good either. So we have balanced this tightness to be at the exact level that it should.
It's completely fine.
The position, as you said, it may happen in certain bags that it turns on, so customer has to be a little bit careful. The second aspect is the position of the on-off button, and that's a very important conversation, because we decided to put it on the index finger, so the speed of turning on the camera and being ready to shoot is immediate. So you don't have like a switch here and then you're shooting here. So you grab your camera, your on button is here, and your shutter is there as well. So that is the secondary choice of the position. So as of now, the priority was set on those aspects. Now, if you look at the Alpha 9 Mark III, the body shape has slightly changed.
Right.
So the front is slightly rounder. So I don't know, it wasn't designed for that particular reason, but my guess is that it might improve a little bit this aspect, because the on-off button becomes a little bit more in the round shape. So that might be, a direction as well.
But is it possible, I don't know, technically, to allow a 2 bottom change to turn on the camera? Probably with existing firmware not, but I don't know if you can change the firmware.
I don't know, because it probably is a matter of circuitry. So if you have, one button becomes short circuit and another one. So it's, of course, it's possible. As I said, technically everything is possible. But now is it, worth doing it, having a special circuit within the circuit board to shortcut?
Maybe Sony can do a survey which will be much bigger than the one that we did, and see for how many people this, affects. Because if this affects like even 10% of the users, this is quite a lot of people. And maybe you can have some sort of a solution for this that will make sense. I know.
Yeah, but anyway, as I said, we know about it, and I think things are, we're always looking at that. And as you say, we measure always based on the amount of feedback we receive. So and the discomfort from customers. So I can't, again, answer straightforward. We know about it, and as I said, it might be more about, slightly changing the shape of the bodies going forward and so on.
And I think that on the FX cameras, the switch is in a completely different place, which is completely different.
Yeah, because it's of the concept maybe of the camera is a bit
But I think that solution, it's not good for stills cameras. I love the design that you have, but it's just a little bit prone to be opened up. Yeah.
Duly noted.
Okay, thank you very much, Yann. And thank you for listening. And don't forget to subscribe and watch more videos from IBC on LensVid.com. Bye.